It seems like the use that I've found for this channel is just posting the most irreverent, random thoughts that I have. Not even attempting to make these into videos anymore. This is just the irreverent thoughts channel. Um, because obviously these videos are not coherent or good enough to put on any place that I would expect people to publicly view them, because a lot of the time it's just me either being super high and then rambling into the camera about nothing, or filming videos of me super high and not saying anything. So this channel doesn't seem to have much of a purpose other than to just be irreverent. Other times I post random clips that I'm going to put into new videos anyway. Like, I feel like more than half of the videos on this channel are just stuff that I've later taken to be put into a larger video. Like, there's a whole stretch of videos, the theory about sensitive people, the DPDDD video, those all just went into diphenhydramine wet dreams. And then, like, the People Problemo video just got edited into the 2 hour video that's like a bunch of numbers. And I think one other video I did on here I put into that one as well. So, like, this channel has basically, it's either me saving or like storing videos to later be posted into a bigger video, or it's just completely irreverent nonsense. So on the trend of completely irreverent nonsense, I actually forgot what this video was meant to be about, so I need to press pause until I remember. Okay, now I remember what I was supposed to talk about. So I think I just don't have the capacity to own people online, and I think that's why I've always been bad at political discussions, because just about every discussion I get into about politics, I never make any interesting or funny jokes. It's just me, as logically as I can, breaking down what the other person is saying and then giving like 10 sources to justify what I'm saying. Or it's me getting really angry at the other person and then not remembering any of my arguments offhand. Because usually when I get angry, I tend to forget a lot of points that I would otherwise make. And there's actually there's some science behind that, is that when people get into a really jumbled emotional state, they tend to forget more things because their head isn't all there. They're operating more on emotion at that point. If I recall right, like, your IQ drops by several points when you get angry. So that, like, logical capacity to break things down just isn't there. Um, or it's highly stunted. And I get angry almost immediately when I see an opinion that I don't like. It really just takes a couple sentences of me feeling like I'm being misrepresented or feeling like I'm being disrespected in some way, and then I'm just pissed off. Or, like, the other thing that is a huge trigger for me is the person acting like they know exactly everything about what they're saying. Like, they know everything, and there couldn't possibly be another stance in existence, or there couldn't possibly be other evidence in existence that, because I heard some random guy on YouTube say this, I must know everything, right? That shit immediately pisses me off, because I've done way more. I've put in way more effort than them, like, at my baseline. And so when I hear something like that and I know they haven't put in as much effort as I have, but they're more arrogant about it than I am, that fucking, it shoots my anger through the roof. And so, um, those are like my triggers: being misrepresented, disrespected, or or people being unnecessarily arrogant, or arrogant without having a reason to do so, that they just haven't put in that much research. um, and so those, and basically all of political or philosophical discussion on the internet, I've realized, is just that. No one cares about sources. No one cares about the truth. No one cares about getting to a point where they can understand things better. There's some actors who pretend like that's what they want to be doing in order to convey a sense of rationality or to project the image of the educator onto you. And in order to be a wise educator, you have to feign some sense of humility, but it never gets used. You know, you never actually move your stance anywhere despite putting up those airs. You only do that so when someone claims that you're being arrogant or has some other claim against you in that general direction, they can say, "Oh, no, 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 I'm not arrogant at all. I'm simply a humble educator. And if information comes my way that will prove me the opposite, then that's all fine." And of course, they never act on it. It's all just a lie. They do that so less you have less things that you can use against them. It's about minimizing the damage. Um, and getting owned online is basically that's basically the motor that turns all political discussion. It's not about the truth. It's not about, spreading your party's goal or making the world a better place. People may say that, but it's all a LARP. All political discussion on the internet is a LARP. It's people attempting to get you owned online so they can go to their friends and say, haha, look at this person who I owned online. All of it is about getting owned online. It's all partisan anger being thrown at one another so they can laugh at each other afterwards, or perhaps no anger at all, just people who are so confident in their position that they're going to change in 2 years, that they can just own their opponent online infinitely. So many jokes being thrown at the other person because they're not a human being if they're not on my team, right? They're not a human being if they're not a member of my party, right? Uh, and so, they use these quote unquote moral justifications, as if morals even existed, uh, in order to in order to dehumanize other people on partisan lines and just make fun of them and just make oftentimes really hurtful remarks at those people, without any care in the world, despite the fact that when you come at them and ask them about policy questions, they'll say, "Oh yes, I just want the best for humanity. Empathy will guide our party's light." Blah blah blah, virtue signaling nonsense, because all of them want to be the one who's the dictator. All of them want to be the person who has the correct moral view, whatever the fuck that means, on how society should be run. People from, totally opposite sides of the political spectrum, they all think that if they were just the one in charge, if they just had, the correct policy actions being taken, then suddenly humanity would be fine and all that is immoral would be vanquished. But I hate to tell you, the world's not that simple. And oftentimes, there is very little in the way of answers on the left or right political spectrum. These systems have not worked. I don't know if you've noticed or not, or if you've been looking around, but nothing that has been tried has worked out in the end. There's always a huge number of problems that end up subverting any of the existing systems within the parameters of a state apparatus. The state has failed, it hasn't worked, and it's not going to work. And so all of these arguments and this, infinite um, obsession with politics that everyone has, the only thing it functionally does is dehumanize other people. It's made to dehumanize other people so that that sick desire that human beings have to own people, to have the person on the to have the person in the middle of the kingdom have tomatoes and onions thrown at them for everyone to look at, basically just public shaming. That primal human instinct to own people and dehumanize them, to not consider them human beings, but to dehumanize them across partisan lines, that's what it's about. That's all it's about. Um, I've had people who I've considered friends who, just because I made a few jokes, or made some, remarks in the direction of anti-Semitism, completely dehumanize me and say horrible things my way, as if they're trying to quote unquote educate me on, the 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 negative statements that I'm making, when they never had to do that. They never had to speak so negative, to be so rude, to be a fucking cunt. All they had to do was tell me, hey, Star, I think these jokes that you made or these remarks that you made were a little bit anti Semitic, or were completely anti Semitic, whatever. Which, I mean, their point was that they were only a little bit anti Semitic, but I should change them. So, of course, it didn't warrant you know, the veracity of their speech. But, I think this was anti Semitic, this thing you said. And it would be nice if you changed it, because this has real world implications and these are bad things. And of course, knowing me as someone who is generally willing to change my opinion if I hear a good enough argument to the opposite of it, I would say, okay, sure. Yeah, I did something wrong here. I'll private the video or whatever, or I'll make a public statement, or I'll just simply not do it again. And then the conversation would have been over. But because that human instinct is there, and I know this is true with this specific person I'm talking about, um, they would rather use it as an excuse to dehumanize me and, talk to me as if I'm a monster. And they did. Um, and just said shitty things that are made to make someone upset. And that never had to have happened. There was no reason for that. There's no justification other than I am allowed to dehumanize you once you do something that's against my moral compass. When everyone's moral compass is different. Morals are ultimately relative to the society that they come from. And so they're meaningless. There's no sense of objective morality that you could possibly have. But everyone who has a sense of morality believes that theirs is objective on some level, believes that theirs should be enforced onto everyone else. And for me to make a statement like that, yes, I know it's inherently moral for me to make a statement like that, because my moral compass is the absence of any. My moral compass is to acknowledge the fact that they are so subjective, which in a sense is me saying objectively this is the moral compass that we have to have, is to not take morals so seriously. But I'm not using that as a way of dehumanizing people. And so again, I'm not doing the same thing that they're doing, even though by rejecting traditional morality, you are inherently being moral by saying that. Um, because morals are something you can never truly escape from. I'm not doing it in the way that they're doing. I'm not using it as an excuse to dehumanize people. I'm not using it as an excuse to own people online across partisan lines when, when it's not productive, it's not doing anything. I know this video is incredibly rambly, but basically I'm saying no one is doing anything. It's all a game of political theater, kabuki theater. It's all a way of making your team look good, or being the cool guy in your circle of friends. Um, any delusion that it's anything more than that is exactly that, a delusion. And people who are into politics need to seek help.